Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome back to Lost in the Wasteland. And I have one of my colleagues, Robert, here, who's joining me, who's a fellow writer on SiftPop. I'm going to let Robert introduce himself and shamelessly plug whatever he would like to plug on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, first of all. Happy to be here. I guess I could just plug my blog, Robert's Thoughts, and my podcast, Robert's Thoughts Movie Cast, which you can find anywhere there's podcasts pretty much. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I'll be back in a month or two. Um, Other than that, find me on Twitter, _Rob's Thoughts, and of course, SiftPop.
Yep. Shamelessly plug SiftPop on here all
Yeah.
the time because, self-promotion.
We do good work over there, I
Well,
have to
thank
say.
you. I it was interesting because I had never really written about movies before working at SiftPop because I just did the YouTube videos because I'm like, well, I could just talk about it and film
Yeah,
myself do it. So it's been a fun experience getting used to doing that. But I've always felt more comfortable just chatting about things, and that's why this is
right.
fun, getting to
Yeah,
talk with
yeah.
different people about their perspectives on movies. And I think we're gonna have something to share here, but I'm gonna start off with Robert telling us what his favorite film is.
Well, based on how I'm dressed and how you can see some things behind me, you might not be too surprised to hear that my favorite movie is Lord of the Rings. And I I don't care if you say Lord of the Rings is all one movie or if you say they're different movies. My thing is that I just can't pick which one's my favorite. I love them all equally. Um, if I had to choose, I'd probably say Return of the King, just because I just love all the emotional endings and there's great action and everything about it is great. But I think everything about all three of them is great. But yeah, Lord of the Rings is easily my favorite. Always has been, always will be. Um, I I don't think there's any way anything can ever overtake Lord of the Rings.
I feel very strongly the same exact way, except I'm one of those people that is like, it's one movie.
Hmm.
So, which also, if I had to pick one, it's probably Return of the King as well.
Yeah.
And because, and this is actually going to be a nice segue into my second question, but some of my earliest memories of going to the movies is seeing all three Lord of the Rings films in theaters. And I had a interesting experience seeing Fellowship because my aunt didn't check how long the movie was.
Oh,
And then we left right when Frodo gets stabbed
you left?
by the cave troll.
Right.
And I'm just like, she's like, there's not that much left in this movie. And
Oh
then I
no.
found out later I missed an hour of the movie
Yep.
because there's a whole other set of things that happen in this
There's a
movie.
lot that happens after that.
I'm just like, and this is what happens when you're a 10-year-old and can't really make those decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, leave me, I'll miss my basketball game. That's exactly what
Oh man,
happens.
that's too bad.
But I argue, it's like, I find it very hard to think that there's going to be a fantasy film, pure, that kind of fantasy that's ever going to hit that height.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know it's not a movie, but Game of Thrones was there for a bit. But even Lord of the Rings, you can go watch it as a 10-year-old. I don't think your aunt would have shown you Game of Thrones when you were 10 years old. There's just way too much in that. Harry Potter is the only thing that might come close.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of people love Harry Potter, but Tolkien isn't alive anymore to ruin people's enjoyment the way J.K. Rowling is ruining people's enjoyment of Harry Potter. So I probably tend to agree with you.
And it's so tough to make fantasy work in that way too, because you have to do all that world building.
Hmm.
And I remember like um Aragon was supposed to be the next big fantasy thing. That didn't work out.
And people hated that movie.
It made it through one movie.
Yeah.
Three more books didn't happen.
Nope.
And even Peter Jackson tried with the moral engines and stuff like that,
Hmm.
which is it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
But there's just something special because everything works about Lord of the Rings. Every aspect of that film, whether it's the acting, the directing, the cinematography, the costumes, the production design, the special effects, which
Hmm.
still look pretty incredible, even though they're, God, what, like 17 to 20 years old at this point.
They're probably about 20 years old when they're finalizing them.
Yeah. And it just works so well. Now, alluded to that I was going to be segueing into this question, but Robert, what's one of your earliest memories of going to the movies?
So this is kind of funny because you were just talking about how you got to see Lord of the Rings in theaters and all that. I think I was 7, no, 5 when the first one came out.
Okay.
First one came out in 01. So I was only 5. I didn't go to see it, though my family and like my dad, my cousins, and even some friends were going to see it. And I remember there was like an extra ticket to go see Return of the King when I was 7 a couple years later. But I watched the trailer and I saw Shelob and I got scared, so I didn't go to see that in theaters. So that's the long answer to say that my first theater memory. I'm not sure if this is correct. My first memory is Jonah, a VeggieTales movie in 2002. I don't know if you ever watched VeggieTales or ever into that, but as a kid, I was big into VeggieTales, and taking your 6-year-old to see that is, I guess, a good idea for my parents. And the story I've heard from both my parents is that I was dancing in the aisles to some of the songs.
Very nice. It's funny because so many of the people I've interviewed, it's like, obviously it's like there's a bit of a range in ages, but like most of us like grew up in the 90s into the early 2000s, and it's like,
yeah,
we all got taken to animated movies as kids. And like I saw Shrek in theaters when I was 10 years old. And I love Shrek. Shrek's one of my favorite movies, and boy, does that get better when you get older. Because then
I need to go back and watch it. I see it's on Hulu right now. I haven't seen it in years.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like so many things that you get when you're not a kid.
Yeah.
Apparently, my mom and my aunt, who took myself, my brother, and my cousins, were freaking out because they're like, apparently the "eat me" thing from Gingy got them, and they're just like, what is this?
And the kids just goes right over their head.
But like, that's always a fun thing. And like, it's funny because like I still see animated movies a lot of times by myself in theaters, and you see all the kids interacting. And I remember going to see the Captain Underpants movie,
mm-hmm.
and all the kids started getting up and dancing to Weird Al's Captain Underpants theme, and I'm just like, this makes me so happy right now.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's there for.
And then when going to see the Lego movie with my girlfriend Jess, she was laughing way more than all those kids were.
Yeah, because she probably gets more of the jokes than they got.
What got her and me were this, like, the Craggle, Nail Polish, and just
right.
stupid stuff like that. It's just like, what?
Yeah, I love the Lego movie, and that's exactly what makes it so great, is that for people like us, we get all that and we appreciate all the jokes and the humor and the story, but then there's just enough to keep the kids entertained with like the fun animation and all that sort of stuff.
They're like, pew, 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 pew.
Right.
Oh, so silly. Now, Robert, do you have a particular favorite genre of film?
So kind of.
Okay.
I because I was thinking about this question, and it's like I feel like when I answer that, I am implying that I like every movie in whatever genre I would say. So I like a lot of fantasy, but I don't like all fantasy. I like a lot of sci-fi, like Nolan movies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of sci-fi that I just don't get into. Like, I appreciate the like James Cameron's Alien or Terminator movies. Like, I appreciate them, but I just don't love them. I could always sit down and watch a good comedy, but you can't sit and enjoy a comedy by yourself the same way you can with other people. So what I settled on is probably just drama in general, because that's what always gets me the most. Even like with Lord of the Rings, the drama elements get me, or what I'm most attracted to. Like, everything else is great, the world building, the escapism, the action, all that is great, but it's the drama aspects and the relationships between Frodo and Sam, that sort of thing. It's always the drama. Yeah. Best romance, perhaps romance. It's the drama aspects of everything that I always come back to. So I would have to say drama.
Well, and that's understandable because like it's the drama that really connects to us. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh, you know, that brings back my memories of fighting like 100-foot tall elephants.
Right.
And
But you
stuff
can
like
say like, oh, that brings back memories of this moment I had with my best friend or something like that.
Mhm. It's like Frodo and Sam. Sam's a, Sam's the kind of friend that all of us hope that we can have, and most of us don't deserve. Because
Yes.
not many people would do what Sam did for Frodo in those movies.
Nope. Nope.
Dude
Have
almost
you read the
drowned.
books, by the way?
Hmm?
Have you read the books?
Yeah.
Yeah, even more so in the books. Is it like Sam doesn't get angry at Frodo in the books? Like he's just like unapologetically loyal to a fault. And man, it's like, man, that's the kind of person I want around.
Exactly. We all need a Sam. That's why Sam's a real hero
Yes,
of Lord of
exactly.
the Rings.
Yep.
Now, do you have a particular favorite filmmaker?
Yes, 100%. And that's Christopher Nolan. So I don't know when I decided Christopher Nolan was my favorite. It was probably after Interstellar came out, because at that point I loved all the Batman movies.
Mhm.
Obviously, The Prestige and Memento are insanely good. And then Inception is my favorite movie that isn't Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Like if Lord of the Rings didn't exist, Inception would easily be my favorite movie. And that's another one where I'm like my top two with Lord of the Rings and Inception. I don't know if either of them can ever be topped for me because they're kind of the things that help me fall in love with movies and storytelling in general. Um, and then, yeah, Inception and Interstellar just on a whole other level. And I appreciate Dunkirk and was kind of disappointed by Tenet. I've seen it twice. I've watched it. I've watched chunks of it on the 4K when I got it. But yeah, Nolan is still easily my favorite filmmaker.
Nolan is one of my top two favorite filmmakers.
Who's the other one?
Cohen's are my number one.
Yeah.
Oh, when I watched The Big Lebowski for the first time, I'm just like, what is this?
I
I'm like,
love the Coens.
I'm like the dude during Gutter Balls, and he's just like, what am I looking at? Like watching that. And one of the things I love so much about the Coens, and which is interesting about Nolan too, is like obviously Christopher Nolan did 3 Batman movies. So like
Mhm.
obviously they're all related, but like you have Memento, you have Insomnia, The Prestige. He made a movie about rival magicians, which I didn't see any of those things coming in that movie. So I'm
No,
sitting here at the end, I'm just like, what?
absolutely mind blown.
I'm just like, what? I remember watching that in my college dorm with my brother. I'm just like, what's going on here? And like Interstellar is one of my favorite films of all time. And
Yeah, me
I
too.
rewatched it on my birthday. And I'm just like, God, I could just listen to that Hans Zimmer score with those organs over and over and over again.
Sneakily one of his best scores.
And then, my God, the score in Dunkirk will give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
The I'm just like, oh my God. And I know people who walked out of the theater in IMAX watching that movie because they
Oh,
couldn't
really?
handle it.
Wow.
But yeah, speaking of Tenet, there's a lot of things I loved about Tenet. There's
Yeah.
also things that pissed me off about Tenet.
Yes.
Oh my God. I think it was the moment when like I don't can't remember many films that made me feel like I was being so talked down to and condescended to. It's just like, don't think about it. Just feel it. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't need your screenplay to tell me that.
Yes. That it sounds like we feel the exact same way then because I really like watching it. Like the ending sequence is pretty nonsensical, but I think it works and just like a turn your brain off and enjoy it. Like I love his typical intercutting between all the different sections. He
Yeah.
does that really well. But like someone pointed out, who is that army fighting? It's like who are they shooting at and who's in the buildings that are exploding? I don't know. And it's just like that sort of thing and there's no emotional connection to anybody in that movie. And that's what I think he does well, like in Inception and in Interstellar, that he just threw out the window in Tenet.
Well, because like Leo did some serious carrying, and in Inception, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
he's a broken man
Yeah.
and he's a like shattered man, and you could understand why
Mm-hmm.
after you learn what happened to him. And then like Matthew McConaughey sells
He's
so much in Interstellar. I'm like, and that was still like when Matthew McConaughey was really turning his career around in that way. I'm
yeah.
just like, holy crap. But like, and it's interesting because like didn't feel a whole lot of like really strong connection to characters in Dunkirk either. But you can
But that
tell
wasn't the
that was
point.
like
Right.
not the point. You literally were just dropped in the middle of things. I'm like, holy
Mm-hmm.
crap. And but like, I don't know. Dude was literally called the protagonist. And I'm just like, really?
Right. I saw that as his credit on IMDb. I was like, John David Washington playing the protagonist. I was like, oh, it's probably a spoiler what his real name is. And it was like, nope, it's just the protagonist.
I So I feel like I have to say this because I saw this really funny meme earlier. Because like there's
Yeah.
so many rumors going around about the new Spider-Man movie and who's going to be in the
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man movie, and it's like Tom Holland trying to remind people who this movie's about, and it's John David Washington being like, "I'm the protagonist."
That's awesome.
I'm just like, oh no, poor
That's a
Tom
good one.
Holland. But
I
like
like the jokes that are saying, rumors are Tom Holland's going to make a cameo in Spider-Man 3.
that was one of my favorite ones because it's like it's so simple and but it's like
Right.
got me. But it's special when you can pinpoint a moment where you just fell in love with a filmmaker and you're just sitting like, this is amazing. Because like I mentioned, when I watched The Big Lebowski for the first
Mm-hmm.
time, I'm like, I'm vibing with this on a whole different
Yeah.
level. And watching like No Country for Old Men and just being like, they made this movie work. This is incredible.
And what's
Because
so awesome about that is those are two completely different movies, and they're both equally great. Well, maybe not equally great, but they're both incredibly great.
which the interesting thing is both of them are my top 10 favorite films of all time. The
Oh
Coens are
yeah.
the only ones that actually have like multiple movies in my top 10. But like they're the two ends of the spectrum of Coen Brothers
Yeah,
movies.
exactly.
Because it's like you get the because like I know Fargo's silly with like the accents and stuff like that, but like that dark thriller kind of
Mhm.
thing and like Miller's Crossing, and you can tell there's a serious spectrum side for them, and obviously the darkest of darkest comedy is like I still laugh watching No Country for Old Men because there's really some darkly funny lines in that movie. I'm like, I feel bad for laughing while watching
Yeah.
this movie. And then you have stuff like Raising Arizona and The
Yeah.
Big Lebowski. And like
The Hudsucker Proxy.
that, and it's interesting because I'd even rather watch Lady Killers than Hudsucker Proxy
Really? Lady
because
Killers is easily my least favorite.
like, oh, it's definitely their worst movie
Yeah.
by far. But like, I don't know, watching Hudsucker Proxy, I'm just like, this doesn't totally feel like a Coen Brothers movie to me.
Hmm.
Lady Killers feels like a Coen Brothers movie. Feels
How
like,
early was Hudsucker?
hmm?
How early was Hudsucker in their filmography? It was like one of their first, wasn't it?
I think it was maybe their fourth because they had Blood Simple, they had Miller's Crossing, Raising Arizona, Barton Fink, and then maybe Hudsucker Proxy was
Okay.
after Barton Fink. Barton Fink's a really underappreciated one. I really love that film a lot.
See,
And
Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink are the only two I haven't seen from them.
like Miller's Crossing's interesting because it's like a prohibition era like gangster movie. I'm like, well, and that's the interesting thing is because like the Fargo show does stuff like that. I'm like,
Hmm.
somebody watch Miller's Crossing.
Yeah.
And Barton Fink is just basically about a writer really dealing with writer's block. And you can tell it's a very personal film because you know the Coen brothers were in some kind of place there. But like even something like Intolerable Cruelty, I could watch that and just have a ball because it's so
Yeah.
silly. And I think George Clooney is one of the best portrayers of Cohen's dialogue and just personality. Because like a lot of people know George Clooney's like he's suave, he's a movie star, but like boy can he play a goofy, weird character in a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, just go look at him in Oh Brother, just being the weird Southern prisoner, just trying to keep his hair all slick and all that. I love it.
I'm a dapper damn man.
Yeah.
Well, ain't this a geographical oddity? 2 weeks from everywhere. Just like,
yeah, he just has, he's great.
Well, and this is actually, I'm really good with segues tonight. So
Nice.
thinking about do you have a particular favorite actor, actress?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you two of each if that's all right.
Go right ahead.
And so my top actor is Andrew Garfield, easily.
Okay.
I just love him as an actor, and I love the movies that he chooses because they always seem to be like deep and thoughtful. Even his early stuff when he was like in his early 20s, he did a British film called Boy A. I'm not sure if you've seen or heard of it. I was only able to find it somewhere online. Don't come after me, FBI. But he's even really good in that, and then obviously, but he's able to anchor a big studio movie like Spider-Man. People talk about how bad those movies are, but they mention he's great as Spider-Man.
It's not his fault.
No, right. So yeah, Andrew Garfield's easily my favorite actor, and then purely coincidentally, I just realized this one day when I was thinking about who my favorite actor and actress were. Emma Stone is my favorite actress.
They're really great together in those Spider-Man films. They have some amazing chemistry.
And that's part of why I feel like those two movies are so watchable, because of their chemistry. And they make the dramatic elements work, bringing that back.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love her as a dramatic actress, between, The Favorite or La La Land, and obviously in the comedies like Superbad or Easy A. I don't think Emma Stone's ever had a dud for me. So those are my two pinnacles. And my other two favorites, I would say, Ryan Gosling. He's another one who's underrated for his acting, because I think a lot of people just think of him as like, oh, he's in The Notebook. Oh, he's in La La Land. He's the romantic comedy guy.
He's
Crazy Stupid Love. He is a weird dude. Exactly. And that's why I love him, because then you get like The Nice Guys or Lars and the Real Girl, that kind of stuff, or even Blade Runner. He's got real range. And I'll just cap off by saying I also love Rachel McAdams, and I want her to be able to get more movies like Spotlight, because I feel like too often she's just like, oh, the female side character. Yeah. But I think in everything she's in, she's great. Like I just watched Eurovision the other day, and she's great in that. I didn't like the movie, but she's great. But Spotlight, she's finally able, or like even Disobedience with Rachel Weisz, like she's finally able to do something of like substance in those.
That's a film that didn't get enough attention when that came out. And the Rachel Weisz, her, and Alessandro Nivola, the three of them are so fantastic in that film and really sell that film really well.
Yeah.
And like getting back to like Andrew Garfield, he was a really good Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like you could say what you want about the writing and because like I don't have anything inherently wrong with The Amazing Spider-Man. Kind of felt like it was a little too close to like the setup of the Sam Raimi one, where it's just like, okay, like you kind of redid the movie. But the second one obviously just had way too much trying to do in it. But when hasn't that happened with superhero movies?
Yep.
And I like Silence.
My favorite Scorsese movie.
It's definitely up there for me too, and he's fantastic, and like Adam Driver's fantastic, and like Liam Neeson, for all spoilers, 10 minutes that he's actually in the movie.
But his name's on the poster because that's going to get butts in seats.
Exactly. It's like, should have renamed the movie Waiting for Liam Neeson. But like, and like The Social Network.
Yeah.
Like,
that was just coming out.
And then like Emma Stone's great. And one of my favorite, like, I don't particularly love a whole lot of rom-coms, but like Crazy Stupid Love gets me every time.
Yeah.
And like she's great in it. And of course Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen The Nice Guys, you have to watch that movie. Because like him and Russell Crowe together in that are so amazing. And Ryan Gosling, it's interesting because Ryan Gosling's one of those actors that I feel like has a couple of main types that he plays.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like he has like the dark, quiet, brooding type performance, like in Drive, Only God Forgives, Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He plays similar kinds of demeanors in like Crazy Stupid Love and The Big Short. God, he gets me every time in Crazy Stupid Love, and he's just like, are you in a fraternity? What's with the New Balance? And as somebody who has size 15 quadruple E shoes, New Balance makes some great shoes. All the hate on poor Steve Carell's New Balance, it just chucks
them over the balcony. Are you the billionaire owner of Apple Computers?
And that's so great. And then there's those weird, quirky kind of roles that I'm like, honestly, is probably what he's really like in real life because he seems like a weirdo.
Yeah.
But one thing about Rachel McAdams, it's interesting because I just watched the first 2 seasons of True Detective. And like she's in the second season and she's one of the leads. Like she's just sharing screen time with like Colin Farrell, Taylor Kitsch, Vince Vaughn. But like I would be interested in seeing her do more of those kinds of roles. But boy, did Game Night get me.
Did you just prove me wrong? Because I haven't seen the second season. Does she have like I saw the first season with Woody and Matt McConaughey. Yeah. Does she have like a meaty role in the second season?
It's because, to be fair, like between her, Colin Farrell, and Vince Vaughn, they share relatively close amount of screen time. I would say probably Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn are a little bit more, but like she's still one of the main characters. Like the first season of True Detective is like amazing television.
Yeah.
I felt like the second season was like a solid cop drama. So like it didn't have like the added layers of the first season, but like I'm not going to argue like Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, and Vince Vaughn didn't get a chance to like, really dig into stuff. Like,
yeah, because I'm the type of person who watches stuff for actors, and I love Colin Farrell and Rachel McAdams, so I might actually go ahead and watch the second season because of them. Like,
don't go within high expectations of it, but like it's like I finished it thinking like it was a solid cop drama. It's hard going in with the expectations after that first season of True Detective because like have you seen the first season of True Detective?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That show.
Yeah.
That last episode. Oh my God. And like I've watched these relatively recently. Like within the past year, I watched the first season of True Detective. Okay.
Yep.
This is, and there's one joke because like I don't know if you've seen the Between Two Ferns movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
But when Zach Galifianakis is like, what was the weed budget on True Detective season 1 and how much have you smoked of it today? To Matthew McConaughey. And I'm just like, oh man.
That was a good one, yeah.
It wasn't a great movie, but there's some of those sketches in that Between Two Ferns movie that are absolutely hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah, I agree with you.
Robert, what's a film that you feel like you could watch every day?
So this is going to be, actually, before I answer that, you mentioned Game Night, and I just want to give the love to Game Night that it deserves because Game Night is great. And everyone in that movie, Jason Bateman, Rachel McAdams, Winston from New Girl, everyone, they're all just great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the one that I could watch over and over is probably an unconventional pick because if most people who watch this cry every time at the end and it's About Time, have you seen About Time?
I have not.
Okay.
Rachel McAdams is in that, right?
Yes, she is in it. Rachel McAdams and Donald Gleason are the leads. It's it's a time traveling romantic dramedy, and the romantic aspect kind of dissipates after the second act, and the third act is more just about life, and I love it. But there's so since you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it and why people cry at the end. Um, but it's my number four movie of all time. Uh, there's just something about it that I can watch over and over and over and over and over. It's in the last 2 years, I've probably watched it between 30 and 50 times.
Oh my.
And that's between like sitting down and watching it and just like having it on in the background, because it's one of those movies that it's just got those kinds of moments all the way through. There's no dull moments for me. I learn stuff about life. I laugh. I feel, and the every single one of the main actors is so kinetic and charismatic that I just love it.
And like obviously we've talked about Rachel McAdams already, but like I really like Donald Gleason a lot.
Me too. Yeah.
And he plays roles very well, whether it's being like, I want to punch my fist through your face, General Hux from Star Wars, or like just so, like there even something small, like I don't know if you've heard of the movie Crash Pad.
Yeah, that one's okay. It's solid.
Like him and Thomas Hayden Church seem like such a weird odd couple.
Yeah.
But like he's a lot of fun in it. And like I remember taking because like before the pandemic and everything, like for a couple of years, my mom and I had been like connecting with, like I would occasionally take her to the movies. And I'm like, when I would see a trailer, I'm like, I'm gonna watch this anyway. But this is something I'd take my mom to. And like Peter Rabbit, not something I'd want to sit and watch by myself. Brought my mom to go see Peter Rabbit. And like him and Sam Neill have a lot of fun playing antagonists in that movie.
Yep.
And like he's a talented actor. And like even like a film that I absolutely love, like Brooklyn, with him in that. But like I remember when About Time came out, and I feel like that was something my mom really wanted to see. But like I might have to check it out.
It's on Netflix, and I'm obviously biased since I love it so much, but I think it's 100% worth watching. And yeah, it's got an emotional moment at the end, but the journey is worth it.
Trying to shake things up a little bit, because like there hasn't been, because like I tried to keep regular with new releases and stuff like that, and sometimes like right now it's hard to remember, but we're in January. Usually it's just trash that comes out in January. And like I watched a documentary on crack on Netflix that came out today. So that's where the point we are in terms of new movies right now. So might have to check it out. That would be less depressing than the documentary that I just watched.
I'm guessing it wasn't any good.
Well, no, like
or it shows the effects of crack on people.
Well, it was really sad. They actually had quite a few, like there's a lot of former users that are interviewed in the movie, and it's just like, God.
Yeah.
God. And then it talked about like the whole entire like war on drugs through like the Reagan administration and the Bush administration. I'm just like, it's a pick me up kind of movie to watch on a Monday. Now, Robert,
it's covering all its bases then.
Yeah. Do you have a particular film that you feel like you really have a connection to because it relates to an interest of yours?
Yeah, so I guess we're going to cover my top four movies here, because my number three movie is Moneyball. Yeah, my number three movie is Moneyball, because before I ever fell in love with movies, I was head over heels in love with baseball. And I still am. I'm a huge baseball fan.
Who's your team?
Down here, Red Sox, Boston Red Sox. I grew up in New York, but I'm a Boston Red Sox fan.
Wow, it's fun. I know that feeling because I'm from South Jersey. I grew up 10 minutes from Philly, and I was a New York Giants fan since I was in second grade. Still mad about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I don't follow football at all, so unfortunately I don't get that reference. But
it's a whole stupid thing. They suck.
Okay.
So do the Eagles. So it doesn't matter. But like I love baseball too. So
yeah. So it was quite interesting growing up as a Red Sox fan in New York. that's besides the point because I love Moneyball because that marries obviously movies and baseball. It came out, what, 2011, so I was
Yeah.
15. Um, so that was in a couple of years leading up to choosing a college major and obviously a college in general. I loved Moneyball so much and the stuff that it was putting forward that uh, I considered being a statistics major, and it never would have worked because obviously to this day I still can't even say the word without slurring over it. Um, but I'm just horrible at math, and it turns out I just like looking at baseball stats, and that's the only kind of math that I'm any good at.
Well, you know
So I
what?
stuck to writing.
Because that's how you learn is you relate it to things you're interested in. As someone who teaches statistics, you want to make sure that you can connect it to things. And like one of the projects my students have to do, like if any of my students are watching this right now, surprise, you have to do a linear regression project on baseball stats.
Oh,
Can you
see that?
predict the amount of wins based off of some other statistics?
See, that's the only kind of thing I would be interested in. But when it comes to other stuff, that's when I just like I don't know what I'm looking at. Numbers are a different language to me.
Yeah, I'm a huge baseball fan too, and it's interesting because I mentioned before we got on here listening to the Cinephiles, and I'm listening to an episode of them covering The Natural,
Hmm.
and they're like talking about baseball. I'm just like, oh, I want to watch baseball right now,
Yes.
and it's middle of the winter. There's no baseball on right now,
Nope.
but like it's interesting because like I'm a Diamondbacks fan,
Hmm.
so people just thought I was weird growing up. It's like, why
How'd
is
you
this
get to
kid
the
like?
Diamondbacks?
So that's an interesting story. So I had gone to Philly because I grew up 10 minutes from the Philly Stadium. Like I could get
Wow.
there in 10 minutes across the river. And like I had gone to some games in like the late 90s and stuff like that, but I didn't care about baseball at that point. It was actually, I remember the game that got me into baseball. And it was on ESPN. Randy Johnson struck out 20 Cincinnati Reds,
Oh yes.
and which most people remember that part of the game. What they don't remember is the Diamondbacks won that game on a bases loaded walk in the 13th inning.
Oh no.
So it's like he struck out 20 people, didn't get the win for the
For
game.
nothing.
But like that was early 2001. So I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm a Diamondbacks fan. I like
It was the
baseball.
perfect year.
Sure was. And that was a bad year to be a Diamondbacks fan for the fact that I think most people were rooting for the Yankees in the World Series because obviously 9/11 happened. And that
Right.
was a very emotional time for the city of New York. And I'm sitting there like, but I want the Diamondbacks to win.
Yeah.
And they did.
And then
And
Luis Gonzalez against Mariano Rivera.
yes, the lamest bloop single to win
Yep.
a World Series. And just to think, did Jeter need to be playing in on that play?
If
He
he
was,
wasn't,
though, and it blooped in the center field. But, and it's just,
too bad for the Yankees.
oh, I'm sure you're heartbroken.
I'm heartbroken.
But,
They're in
like,
my thoughts.
so this might be a slightly sore subject for you, but so 2019, this was a dream come true because I had to go to a tutoring software conference in Arizona.
Oh,
And I got to go to my first ever home game for the Diamondbacks, and it was against the Red Sox.
oh,
And that season didn't start very well for the Red Sox, and somehow
oh.
the Diamondbacks beat them like 16-9 in that game. And I'm just like, how did this happen?
Hey,
And
well, I'm happy for you then.
well, to be fair, the Diamondbacks were also winning 15-2. So they almost blew the game. I'm just like, come on. Throw a
Don't let this
starter
happen.
out there. Somebody just stop them from scoring runs.
Yeah.
But I could talk all day about baseball. I do that with my brother all the time because
Yeah.
we both love baseball. He is a very angry Phillies fan. So, but this season was so weird. So weird.
And the
Diamondbacks
Phillies aren't in a good position right now either.
Yeah,
They're
I
being
think
so
both of us were
stingy.
just kind of like the season, all 2 months of it goodbye.
Yeah.
But now, Robert, What movie character do you feel like you have a personal connection to?
See, this is a tough one because I don't think I have a good answer. Um, so I'll answer the way that I thought about it, and that's
Okay.
like, what person do I want to be like? Because when I think of myself and I watch movies with like questionably like ambiguous morals, so leaning over to TV a little bit too, like with Game of Thrones, I always kind of lean towards the one whose morals may like align up to mine the most, and where I think like, how would I act here in this situation? So like, I think of Jon Snow always trying to do the right thing, always trying to do the honorable thing, or again Samwise,
Mhm.
just trying to have some hope in the world and trying to carry on and so those are probably my best two answers, but I'm no Jon Snow. I can't lead Westeros. I can't help destroy the ring like Samwise did. But in terms of like who I aspire to, that would be my best
I
answer.
really like that answer. And I appreciate you bringing up Game of Thrones because, like, I'm that kind of way too. Because, like, it's also probably why, like, I love Captain America. He's
Yeah.
my favorite Avenger. And I
Hmm.
have that argument with my brother all the time because he's so Team Tony. And
Oh.
I'm just like, and watching Game of Thrones and spoilers for the first season of Game of Thrones. So,
10
like,
years ago.
if this didn't get spoiled for you, I'd be shocked. But like watching Game of Thrones, I I binged the first 6 seasons and started watching live season 7. So I'm watching Game of Thrones. And right off the bat, my favorite character is Ned Stark.
Yeah.
Like I love Ned Stark. I would be Ned Stark in this, and goddamn, I probably would be decapitated in Game of
Yeah.
Thrones because I wouldn't play the Game of Thrones.
And that's the whole point, right? It's about who's willing to play and who's not, and you have to compromise yourself if you want to play. And Ned was unwilling to compromise. But it's funny
Oh,
you bring up being spoiled because I had a roommate 2 years ago, um, and before season 8 premiered, and we don't have to get into that, but before season
yes.
8 premiered, he wanted to binge the entire show and with his brother and be prepared and then watch season 8 live.
Mhm.
He didn't know any spoilers somehow. And this guy, he's like me and you. He's super into movies, watches all the old stuff, watches new stuff coming out, but somehow he managed to stay unspoiled for Game of Thrones and was able to experience like uh Ned Stark's, decapitation and the Red Wedding and all of that kind of stuff without being spoiled. And I just applauded him. It was like, man, good for you for being able to do this.
Well, and here's the funny thing. So my friends started Game of Thrones without me, senior year of college. I'm like, screw you guys. So, and after a while, I made a pact to myself. I will not watch this show until winter's finally here. Because that's all I kept hearing is winter is coming,
Winter is
winter is
coming.
coming. And then at the end of season 6, I saw headlines. It's like winter is here. I'm like, shit,
And you're like,
catch
okay.
up and watch the show. And I did. And the funny thing was, you know who my second favorite character in the first into the first couple episodes was? Robert Baratheon.
Oh,
Just how much luck I have with
you're
the,
just bad at choosing characters.
well, because that's the thing. Because like I was much more of a Ned, but boy, did I enjoy watching Robert on screen. He was
Right.
such a funny jerk, and like he was a fun character, and like
Oh,
Mark
for
Addy
sure.
was so great as him too. And it's just like, wow, I really know how to pick them. Really know how to pick them.
Okay, yeah, too bad.
Too bad. And it's so interesting. Like Game of Thrones was such a big thing, and then pointed season 8 had some strong feelings for people.
Yeah. I try not to let myself get worked up about like being disappointed because my philosophy is there's always other movies to watch or other shows to see or other books to read. Like Game of Thrones didn't end the way you wanted to. That's too bad. Just go watch something else that you're gonna like. That's my personal philosophy, at least, because if I get too worked up over something like that, it just drives me crazy. And then, yeah,
It's a fair point. I
yeah.
appreciate that outlook on things.
I try to be
Now,
kind of even keeled.
now, what is a film that you feel like people would be surprised to hear that you like?
I don't know. So would Napoleon Dynamite fall in here?
Sure, why
Swiss
not?
Army Man, or I love Swiss Army Man, or even I know these movies have so much love in the film fan community, like in on film Twitter and stuff. But the Paddington movies, I love those. So those are my best answers.
So, Paddington 2 made my top 10 of the year that it came out. I'm just like, you don't even know. When I would tell people that and they hadn't seen it, I'm like, what? And I'm like, you
This is a
don't
kids
even
movie.
know.
Yeah,
You don't know about Phoenix Buchanan. And
exactly.
I've had such like I knew Hugh Grant was like this romantic film lead and like he was that charming British man. But now Hugh Grant's so much more entertaining to watch now. And him as Phoenix Buchanan in Paddington 2 and Brendan Gleeson as Knuckles McGinty.
Charles McGinty.
And that movie, like the charm is literally like off the charts.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's also that kind of feeling is also why Shaun the Sheep movie Farmageddon made my top 5 for 2020.
I heard that. Yeah.
Because like sometimes movies like that just bite me. I'm just like I adore this movie. It's the best word to use for it. And like the Paddington movies, it's like they're so special. There's just something
Paddington
special
2
about them.
especially. Yeah.
And
I love it.
and the Swiss Army Man thing, if you just like tell a casual movie watcher what that movie's about, they're gonna look at you like,
Are you okay?
"Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Like a farting corpse. But like you watch that movie, I'm like, I've never seen farting so artfully done in a movie.
Exactly.
Like, how does it even work? And
And the directors have said they think fart jokes are dumb and they hate musicals, but they went out and made a movie with both of those things because they wanted to go out of their comfort zone. And that's what the movie's all about. And I love that idea.
Napoleon Dynamite, everybody had a vote for Pager shirt at one point.
Yeah.
And it's just such a weird, it's like, can I have your tots?
No, go find your own.
And just like, what happened to, I was about to ask what happened to John Heater. And then I realized he was in the last Tremors movie.
Yeah, I think he was in Napoleon Dynamite, Blades of Glory, and that's about it.
Benchwarmers.
Yeah, Bentress. I don't know if there's many other things.
He was in Tremors Shrieker's Island that came out in 2020.
All right.
He took the open spot after Jamie Kennedy didn't return after the past two.
Okay.
Because that's where the Tremors franchise went. They're casting Jamie Kennedy and John Heater in movies in the late 2010s.
Man,
I have a soft spot for Tremors.
I've never seen any of them.
I have I don't have Shrieker Island yet, but I have all the rest of them on DVD.
Nice.
Oh, even the sci-fi original TV one about the Old West. It just there's and for some not for some reason I know why Michael Gross was in all of them, because what else is Michael Gross doing?
Gotta eat somehow.
Exactly. Now my last question for you, Robert, is what do you love most about movies?
Probably just see, when I started off watching movies, or like when I started appreciating movies, it was because they're fun to watch, they're exciting, whatever, escapism, that sort of thing. I'm not saying that anyone who watches them for those reasons is wrong. That's just how I started off. But I've sort of evolved into loving to see other people's point of views and see what they have to say and how they communicate those things, because there's so many different movies out there, obviously, and there's so many different ways of saying similar things. Like lots of movies have similar messages. They're not often said in the same way because people are individuals. There's uniqueness, there's individuality, there's different ways to say things, and that's what I really appreciate. And I love to see you get a little bit of a person through the movie that they make, and I love to see that. And then of course there is the escapism and the entertainment value, that there's always that. I'm not saying I'm this intellectual guy who only likes to learn things from movies, because every once in a while you just like to watch something like Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the movies that resonate with me the most are the ones that I find some sort of meaning in.
And I really appreciate that, because it's so interesting learning about different cultures and different perspectives and different places, different time periods, like just through film. And it's so interesting because, like, to the left of me, I have a giant wall of movies over here. And like when I was younger, it's like remembering back to what my movie collection used to be like. It was like 90% James Bond movies, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Rocky.
Right.
And still have all of them. But like, if you told like 16-year-old Shane, like you would have movies like you'd have Japanese movies, you would have Scandinavian films, you would have like Spanish language films and just French films, and you'd be like, what?
Right.
And it's like you gain all those different kinds of perspectives, and it's so interesting seeing how people can turn their ideas and feelings into art. And like how I could appreciate watching a 3-hour and 5-minute moving painting like Barry Lyndon and just be like, oh, Stanley Kubrick, what a genius. What an asshole. It's like, he was both those things. But like, and that's such a special and interesting thing. So here's a fun part of my show where turn things around. So Robert, this is the time where I let my guest ask the Wasteland Reviewer one question. So what do you got?
Movie related, let's see. We've talked about a lot of stuff. Who is your favorite movie villain and why?
That's a great question. See, like what's running through my head right now is all my favorite movies, and it's like my favorite villain has to be in one of them, because it's like it's so interesting. And so before I give like probably what my real answer is,
sure,
I always, and it's interesting because like talked a little bit about this when we were talking about earliest movie going experiences, because like we all grew up watching like animated movies as kids and stuff like that, and I always loved villain songs in Disney movies. Like I love the Oogie Boogie song from Nightmare Before Christmas and Hellfire from Hunchback. Like if you ask me what my favorite Disney song is, I'm probably going to tell you it's Hellfire from Hunchback of Notre Dame. And like it's so interesting with like and like Be Prepared from Lion King and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they were just so much more interesting than the hero songs. Because like a lot of times like the hero songs are like big, triumphant, and poppy and stuff like that. And it's just like there's some texture and different kinds of things going on in those villain songs.
Yeah.
But if I weren't going to pick any of them, one film that I alluded to already, and it just might have to be Anton Chigurh.
Oh, nice.
And I think the reason is because do I ever think that I'm going to see somebody like him in my life? Probably. I hope not. But we all face what he represents. And it's just this force of nature. He is like the inevitable demise coming at you. And it's so interesting at the end of the film, like he gets completely blindsided, and what probably would have killed most people in a car, he just wraps his arm up and just keeps going.
Yep.
And like just the way that he holds himself, like obviously whoever's idea it was to have that haircut was genius.
Yes.
Because like it is unnerving and weird. And what I love so much about him is like nothing's gonna stop him.
Right.
Nothing. And I think one of the most terrifying things is like you can have like a charming villain, because like who doesn't love a Hans Gruber from like Die Hard? Like Alan Rickman's great, but like a Sauron or the Ring itself is like this deep, haunting kind of representation of something bad in humanity. Because like the Ring tempts people, and brings out the worst in them. And I think Chigurh works so well, especially in No Country, because like poor Tommy Lee Jones, he just wants to do his job and be able to protect people. And he realizes he has come into play with a force that he cannot comprehend. And Llewellyn Moss is a little too cocky and doesn't realize he's messing with a force that he probably should not be messing with. And there's so many great little things. Like one of the things I love about Coen Brothers films is the characters, even the smallest characters. Case in point, that lady at the trailer park, it's like, we don't give out that kinds of information. And she's just like, perfect. Like there's a woman like that in some trailer park somewhere that is just will not give in. And you look at Chigurh, he's totally going to kill her, 100%. And then he looks to the side and you hear somebody fiddling around in the next room. And then he turns around and walks away. If there wasn't somebody in that other room, that lady would have been dead. And then like even just some of the greatest moments of like him across from Wells, like Woody Harrelson's character, and he's just casually talking on the phone and just pulls the trigger. You don't even see Wells get shot. Like you don't see all the gore. It's like him just casually lifting his boots up so he doesn't get blood on them.
Right.
And just all those little things, and him hiding in that motel room, letting Tommy Lee Jones go. Because he knows that Sheriff Tom Bell has come to the realization and he's met something that he can't fight. And besides the fact that Javier Bardem is unbelievably creepy and unnerving in that performance, and he deserved that Oscar.
100%.
100%. But there's just something about the embodiment, and like, even like Woody Harrelson's like, he's like the bubonic plague. It's just like, he's something that you can't comprehend and you can't beat. And he's terrifying in that way. And he's just like a force. And that's probably why he's my favorite villain.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
So, and I didn't even have that. Didn't have that prepared on the spot, but I've definitely had that conversation with people before.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, so more you know, I love villain songs from Disney movies.
Awesome.
I sing along to Hellfire all the time, which is one of the weirdest things. But I guess there's a lot of fun, Robert. Another one of the things where it's like, this is the first time we got to meet.
Yeah.
So we got to chat movies and have fun like this. And it's fun because I'm at this point getting to meet all the SiftPop people, because like we just know each other from commenting in Slack.
Right.
And on Twitter and stuff like that. So this has been a lot of fun. So I'm going to let you, Robert, last minute, do any shameful plugs. And then I guess we'll wrap up the show.
I would just say all the same stuff as earlier. You can find me on Twitter, blog, SiftPop, all that same stuff.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me on. It was a blast.
Awesome. And when I come back around and have people on again, hopefully they'll come back on and have different questions.
Yeah, hopefully. I'd love to be back.
But thank all of you for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.